Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another installment of Featured with Three Left Feet, where we get to talk with upcoming creatives and artists that are in the northwest of England. My name is Jayran, and today I'm really excited to be joined with Carla Boti. And would you like to introduce yourself, please, a little bit?
Hello. So my name is actually Caleb Boateng, but my artist name is Carla Boti. I'm a musician, born in Amsterdam, moved to London, and now I've been in Lancaster for the past 4 years. And I've been producing music for the past year or so. So yeah, super excited. Thank you for having me.
We're really, really excited for you to be here. You're our second guest for our little featured series that we're doing. You're our first musician. How would you kind of define yourself as an artist and a creative?
I'd say that genre-wise, I'm super multi-genre. So I draw inspiration from a lot of different things and a lot of different styles. But I think my main influence is kind of like pop, soul, R&B. So that's kind of the combination. Um, I kind of normally perform solo sets, but since recently I've got a little band with me as well, so they perform with me.
You play instruments as well, right?
Yes, yes. So I started playing the piano when I was like 11, and since then it's kind of become an obsession to learn new instruments. So I play the guitar, play the drums, the bass as well, and I use all of those things to produce my music as well. So it's all self-produced.
What is your process like as a like learning to produce like and being self-produced as well as opposed to having someone else kind of come and do it for you?
That's a really good question. Well, so um, actually, my first project was like a decision, an impulse decision. I really want to put out some music. Okay, and then that was the easy part. Then it was came to how am I gonna how am I actually gonna put out music? How am I gonna produce it? So it was a steep learning curve. A lot of YouTube videos, a lot of getting in touch with friends and asking how to do things. And it's very interesting when I listen back to some of the music that I put out before and I compare it to the skills that I have now. It's like, wow, that's a big difference. I'm still learning, but it's super cool to be able to create your own music. It's like very rewarding.
I find it like because I write as well, and like it's the I've always wanted to kind of maybe do a little bit of songwriting stuff as well, but I've always never known like what are the steps or what are the ways to do it. And I guess like when you're a musician, you kind of just figure it out by yourself. And do you feel like you're kind of like your passion is what drives you to kind of learn, or is it more of a oh well, I have to do it?
No, I mean, it's definitely my passion for it. It would have to be because at times it's extremely tedious. And I don't think if I wasn't passionate about it, I'd be able to hang in there. Um, but yeah, it's definitely my passion for music in general as well. Um, it's so rewarding, like I said, to be able to put something together and be happy with it. You know, um, I think it's also a little bit of a double edged sword, though. I think any musician would agree with me that like we're probably the harshest critics, of ourselves. And yeah, at times, I'll produce something one day and then listen to it the next and be like, oh my goodness, I can't, put this out, or I don't love this anymore. So it's that finding that balance between, okay, it's okay to mess up a little bit, and okay, I've got to pat myself on the back a little bit here too.
Yeah, I think that's probably, I mean, all artists feel that, all
Yeah.
creatives, we go through that where one day we see our work and we're like, oh, okay, maybe I'm good. And then next day we're like, why am I doing this? Where does that kind of passion come from? Where do you draw inspiration from then typically when you start your process?
A lot of it comes from my experiences. I know it's a bit of a cliche, but that is where it comes from. So any memories that I make. It's funny because today actually, today I was in the shower and then a song I did popped up into my head. It's like very random, but certain things can just trigger like this creative response in me, and then I'm writing. And a lot of the times, what happens then is I've got a little doodle lyrics in my head, and then I record it as a voice note, and then I get to my keyboard, and then I try and you know make sense of the gibberish that I just sang into my voice notes.
Do you find that you kind of you go lyrics first and then composition, or does it change depending on mood?
Good question. I've been thinking about this recently. I think it's normally the melody that I get first, the melody and the lyrics, and then the composition kind of comes after, and I add it and I build it up part by part. So, like I said this morning with that song, for example, I had like a funky rhythm in my head while I was showering. I was thinking, okay, this is good, and then lyrics came, and then I was like, okay, let me get out the shower real quick and record this. So that's normally the process, and then I sit down and I'll play the guitar with it and fill it in.
I really wish I had that ability. I'm so jealous of I love music a lot, and I'm very jealous of people who can just come up with melodies and lyrics. I think it's so beautiful. So you also do, like, I've seen online you've also done poetry as well. Is there a difference between songwriting and poetry? Do you find?
Um, I mean, fundamentally, not really. It both comes from a place of emotion. Um, and then kind of it's based on personal experience. But the process for me in writing both is different. So songwriting, like I said, it kind of the melody comes to me. I can feel it. The music is kind of within me. I'm like, oh, this is good, and then I write the lyrics for it, and then it's based on my experience. Whereas with poetry, it begins it's completely rooted within my experience. When I write a poem, normally I write it right after it's happened, or as I'm kind of reflecting on something, an experience, and the emotions that I'm feeling. Like it's super raw to me. Whereas with songwriting, um, it's more connected to how I'm feeling and how I can imagine the song. I don't know if that kind of makes sense, but it's like, yeah, with poetry, it's like super personal, and I'm much more, as it stands now, I'm much more reluctant to share my poems than I am sharing my songwriting, and that's very interesting. But I think poetry is like super personal. It hits you right in the feels. So
Is that why you, as a musician, you have like your artist name and almost persona? Because then for that sort of writing, it's for like Carla, but then poetry is maybe I'm reading a bit too much into it, but is that more of a reflection of Caleb?
yes, that is a perfect description. And I think with with Carla Boti, again, you do, even though it's merging with my identity and more I'm becoming into my artist self. Yeah, there's still like certain things that I can hide behind, but poetry is completely raw. There is no hiding behind anything. It is literally my emotions on paper, unfiltered, no added bells and whistles, just straight up emotion on paper, or my interpretation of life on paper. And I think that's the biggest difference.
When you're songwriting, do you ever get like do you ever like set yourself like tasks or like commissions of like I'm going to write a song in this genre, it's or I'm going to write a love song or is it purely organic?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could. I think it would be way easier if I just created music in a specific genre and I could tell myself to. But no, it's completely organic. I think that is something that I'm trying to work on and trying to find as an artist, is um to really find what is my natural, this is what I want to create and this is where I'm happy and this is my comfort zone. And I don't think I've necessarily found that yet. Right now, like, I'm just creating whatever comes through me, and I put that on paper and put that out. But I kind of want to control that a little bit more and then see what happens if I force that into a certain direction.
Do you think musicians kind of struggle a bit with finding a brand or because I know that's something that I struggle with as a writer, like, what is my style, but also not pigeonholing myself to solely
Yeah.
be in that one little box and I'm only known for that. I want to explore other avenues.
Yeah.
But I also, if I'm going to put myself out there, I need to know what I'm about so I can market myself.
Exactly. Yeah. But and this is the constant battle that I think is age old, right? Between you being creative and also you being really a business or a brand. You want to be memorable to people and you want to have like something that connects with like fans or people who support your art. It's very difficult, but I do think that the most important thing and what I tend to prioritize is whether it feels good to me and whether I'm happy with the direction. And yeah, some people may not necessarily think, oh, this is different from the first project that he did, but that is part of creating art. You've got to just follow your intuition almost. The thing that guides you. And as I said, it's I'm learning to kind of try and work together with my intuition and guide it maybe into like a similar direction. But at the end of the day, intuition over everything, right? Like the creative force that controls my music and everything else. I got to respect it, because if it goes, that's it's not a great thing, you know.
Yeah, I feel that. Definitely. So how did this all start?
You mean the Carla Boti process or making music in general?
Music in general? Was it when you were little? And then maybe when did you then find Carla, the musician?
Like I said, music has been something that's been in my life for a long time. My mom is a gospel artist, so she's been making music, since I've been a kid, since I was a baby, ever since I can remember, really. So there's always been music in my household, whether it be gospel music or the music that my dad was into. So it's always been a part of my life. And then when I turned 11, my mom started going to piano lessons, and I joined her one time. And then the teacher was like, "Oh, let him try and play a little bit." And I sat down, and I mean, I can't remember, but apparently the teacher was like so impressed with my playing that he said, "No, he's got to play the piano." And ever since then, my mom has been pushing me to, try and play the piano. And so she bought one, a cheap little piano that we had, and I got to mess around with it at home. And I kind of just taught myself from there. And as I said, since then, it's kind of been an obsession, learning new instruments and understanding different instruments and how to use them. So I was doing that for most of my life. I've kind of been busy with that, making music and in bands and playing with other people. But then last year, because of COVID, all of a sudden I couldn't play with other people anymore, right? And that was like very strange to me, because all of a sudden, I'm kind of on my own in terms of making music. And I thought, I've got to do something. I just can't sit here and not be making music. So yeah, that's when I decided to put out a project. And I had a clear deadline. Like my deadline was going to be, at the end of the first lockdown, that's when I'm going to put out music. Little did I know that the first lockdown was going to drag on. But yeah, it was really good. It was really good. And it felt so good to be able to put out music. I remember before I released it, I was like, is this good enough? Can I really put this out? And then I thought, well, I've worked so hard on this, so I just did. And yeah, I'm so glad that I did, because it's a very good feeling to be able to create something and then have other people hear it.
I also love how, you found that inspiration and that drive through lockdown as well. And I was just wondering, like, then do you think COVID had I mean, from sounds of it, it definitely had an impact on your creative process, but do you think it gave you that kind of like extra spark of like, okay, it's like a now or never kind of moment?
Yes, yeah, which is so strange, isn't it? But I
Yeah.
think I think COVID removed the excuses. I think that's really what it is, right? Like
Yeah.
during your daily life, you're like, oh no, I can't do this because I'm busy with this, or I can't do this because I'm. But COVID kind of force stopped all the excuses that you could give, and all of a sudden, I didn't have any reason not to, so I did, and yeah, that's one of the positives I'd say that out of all of this, I can kind of take away.
Is there, if you don't mind me asking, do you think there's like maybe some kind of artistic difference between your musician presence and then just you as a creative, or with the name change, or is it just because you wanted to?
Wow, no, that's a really good question. I think a part of me, I think, was kind of worried about producing the music and putting it out there. Um, and so, yeah, I think the artist name kind of came. with having that as a separate entity from myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I think since then, after putting it out, I've very much become like it's become one. It's become a
Yeah.
part of me now,
Yeah.
um, which is very interesting. I didn't expect it to become like such a big part of my identity. I thought I'd just put out music and then, I could be like, okay, I'm done with it. I'm happy that I did that and it's enough. But, it hasn't felt like it's enough. I'm still addicted to the feeling of putting out music. So
Yeah.
I guess that's what I'm going to keep doing.
What I really love about like art in general and like when it gets received is that I feel like we creative people tend to have this, we don't really say it, but we have this need when we put something out there, we want it to be loved. Like we want people to love it. And how have you found it putting it out there? Have you got that reception that you wanted, or was it different?
I put it out with very little expectations. I knew that, um, no one knew me as an artist, right? People knew that I played instruments, but no one knew me as an artist. So I put it out with very little expectations. And the response has been so good. So good. I mean, just people listening to it and messaging me and telling me, like, oh, this is how I felt with this song, or, I really like what you did here. And it's like a super tiny detail that was super gratifying, right? But it's definitely a balance, and I think all creatives kind of have this. You also want to kind of remind yourself that this is something that you want to do for you, and you love the creative process, and that's why you're doing it. Because I think otherwise you can kind of fall into this trap a little bit of wanting to chase numbers. Um, but yeah, the response has been super good. I'm very glad. Yeah, and recently, it got picked up by BBC introducing in Lancaster, and you know, again, they've just been so supportive of like my process, and I think that's very cool. Having someone believe in your music is just very rewarding.
So the BBC introducing, can you please tell us about that? Because that is so exciting. How did that get started? Did you reach out to them? Did they reach out to you?
There's like a lot of opportunities for up and coming artists, and especially with BBC. So with BBC introducing, you can put your music on the website and then tag it there, and then you sort of have this waiting game, and you hope that a radio host kind of listens to it and picks it up. And I was fortunate enough to get picked up. My song "Strawberry Ice Cream" got picked up, and I uploaded "I'll Be What You Want, Babe" as well on there. And yeah, I didn't even know it got picked up initially. That's the interesting thing. So it got played on the radio, and the next day I get a message from another artist who's like, "Oh, I just heard your song on the radio. I'd love to work with you." And I said, "Radio? Well, look back at I check my emails for starters, and I check the radio show, and they played it, and the host was just so excited about my music. And he said, I want to try and get in touch with Boti. I want to speak to him. So he sent me an email. We did a little interview that's going to be out on the 10th of April. And yeah, since then we've just been in constant contact, talking about different opportunities with BBC introducing. And yeah, there's a lot of exciting stuff that I can't necessarily talk about, but there's a lot happening. a lot is happening. And I'm super excited for people to hear.
So the single is available on Spotify and iTunes and stuff, I assume?
Yeah, so it's on all streaming platforms. So Spotify, Apple Music, anywhere you can think of, it's there. I tried to cover all the bases.
Awesome. Yeah. I thought I'd use this little plug opportunity.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, so if you want to hear my music, then you can check it out on Spotify as well under Boti.
That's KALABOTI, and all of his music will be available there, and everyone should really listen to it because it's really good. What have you put out there? What are you working on? What can people see from you?
So I've got my first EP, which is out there. I recently released another single called "Strawberry Ice Cream,"
It's very
and
good.
that's the one. Thank you. And that's the one that's been played on the radio now. Yeah, so I'm working on an EP. Got a couple of collaborations as well with different artists, up and coming artists, coming out as well soon. So there's a lot of exciting stuff happening this year. Um, yeah, and I'm super keen for people to hear it.
You spoke a bit about collaborations. Is there any particular artists or creatives that you're keen on collaborating with in the future?
I have a good friend of mine in Holland called Debski, an amazing artist. A big part of why I make music now is him. He's a big inspiration. And we've been working on putting out a song, a collaboration together, and that's been super cool. He's working on an EP as well. And then there's a guy called Mosiah Levi, who's down in Suffolk, uh, amazing voice, and we're working on a song together as well. And then there's a couple more, under the wraps that I won't necessarily reveal.
That's
But
okay.
yeah, there's a lot of exciting projects going on, and I'm super keen to work with whoever really. Originally, the plan with the first EP was actually to make like a collaborative project. It wasn't going to be just me. It was going to be a bunch of different artists. And then that kind of changed to maybe for the first time I should put out something that's just me trying it out. But yeah, definitely, I'm so excited to collaborate with people.
Obviously, you're based in Lancaster. You sound like you've been quite well traveled. What's so special about the northwest of England, and why particular Lancaster have you chosen to kind of stay?
Yeah, well, I just love the people. For starters, I know everyone says this, but
It's true.
it's something about the people here that just is so attractive to me. You know what I mean? And it's like it reminds me a lot of Amsterdam, which is very. People probably won't believe me when I say this, but I think there is like almost like a cultural thing in Lancaster where they really value creativity and they try and push, people to be creative. There's room for improvement, right? I think based on what I've seen, there's like so much space to grow, and like there's a big music scene out there in Lancaster that is growing, and it's like so exciting to be a part of.
I was very surprised by Lancaster's kind of art scene, for music and for theatre, and the amount of the music festival that they have at the beginning in autumn, and then the gigs and the open mic nights. And it really is just this bustle of finding out which creatives are in the area and just singing together. And I think that spread of joy and just like basking in each other's talents and light is just really, I found that same thing as well. Like it's such a small place, but it feels so kind of cosmopolitan and
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, completely. And I think, groups and organizations like Three Left Feet, that they're a part of that, right? Like you have all these opportunities to kind of stay involved in the community and, especially within the creative community. And that is just perfect for me. I love that. I love being a part of, you know, um, you know, like the journey that other creatives are going through, So yeah, it's really good.
Speaking of like the journey of kind of creatives that are going through, obviously some people haven't been able to thrive so much in lockdown and with you know cuts to funding and all that. Has there been any issues that you faced maybe recently with COVID or just in general with the arts and music?
Well, I think what I've realized kind of learning how to produce and creating my own music is that it's very expensive. It's very expensive. And I think like you need a lot of resources to produce art. And especially like if you haven't a vision of what you want it to be, it's very painful when the resources are the things that are holding you back. If you have like a vision of creating something and then it's limited by the fact that you don't have enough money, it's a very painful thing as a creative. I don't know if you feel the same way, right?
Yes.
But that's why funding is so important. But I think especially recently I've had a lot of support from people. My family's like extremely supportive, and also I feel like I've had to be creative in terms of my limitations. Now I can, contact, my friend Devsky and be like, oh, could you just put in this thing because I know that you have this really good guitar that I don't have. So we've had to be creative in terms of, producing. But I think, yeah, funding is so important. And the cuts are so damaging. Speaking to Devsky, it's the same in Holland, right? Like globally, there's just these cuts that people are making on, creative funds is killing the creative sector. It's like so damaging. Yeah, it's really sad. But again, I do believe that groups like you guys and, community recording studios and, you know, so many different groups provide like that gap. Like they fill that gap for us to still be able to produce. So that's really good.
I feel like artists as a collective, we do have this sense of community. I don't really like to see it as separate sectors. I think, music and writing and theatre and performance, they all merge together, and we all share that experience of facing these problems, and art being a creative process but also a business. And that lack of transparency, I think, sometimes is what is I find is a bit of an issue. Do you think that's kind of the main issue that creatives are facing currently in this climate?
Yeah, completely. Completely. And it seems like creatives have been left out, of all the subsidies and the plans made. And it's like creatives are constantly being put last. And it's a huge shame. But I think, again, it's been like a double-edged thing, right? Like what I've also seen is communities really coming together now, and people really working together to keep these things going and keep these things alive. And that is really beautiful to see. And it's really good. And I hope that continues when things go a little bit back to normal, that, we stick together and we've got each other's backs. Because like you said, all these sectors, we're definitely connected, the creative scene is like, it's so important to even people who aren't creative as well. So I hope that kind of continues.
Where would you like to see the music industry kind of go in the next 5 years? And where would you like to see kind of creatives and arts, like this community, go? I mean, you've kind of touched on it already, just these collaborations and coming together and being supportive. I assume you want that to continue in the future, but the music industry in general, where would you like to see it be in the next 5 years? And also, where would you like to see yourself in it in the next 5 years?
Yeah. So
A big one, I'm sorry.
no, that's fine. It's good. I think the music industry, um, especially within the UK, it's really good that they try and support up and coming artists, right? If you want to become a musician, and there's a lot of avenues for you to do that, which is great. And I hope that continues. And I think that that's only going to get bigger, right? Like I mentioned, you've got BBC introducing, and that's a big one. But you've got so many, community radio stations that are willing to like, you know, support young artists and up and coming artists. And I hope that that continues, because I'm definitely seeing like a trend of different styles of music that are kind of bubbling up under the surface that people, may not necessarily have listened to before. And I love that. And that's needed. You need like people to kind of push the boundaries in music. That's one. In terms of the creative scene in general, I hope that, yeah, that continues. We need to keep working together. In fact, some of the best art related things that I've seen have been combinations of different things, music, poetry, and, it's been like that type of thing. So I hope that that continues. And I hope that, especially in Lancaster, that keeps going. I hope that there's a way, because I think a lot of people struggle with finding other artists. And I found this initially in Lancaster too. It's like if you're not part of a society, then it's very difficult for you to find other musicians or other artists, unless they're like super, overtly gigging. And I think we can do better with that. I don't know enough artists, like in terms of, people who paint or in Lancaster. And I know for a fact that there's so many, but I just haven't met them. So I think if we continue to kind of get in touch with each other and, have events where we get to mingle and discuss ideas, that can only be a beneficial thing, right?
We really hope with Featured, this will be a networking opportunity and people will be able to watch these and read blogs and find each other and then reach out to each other. And we really hope to build this network and community and spread it out. And like you said, like for people who might not necessarily know of others, and suddenly they will have these avenues readily available to them.
And I love that. And I think that is so good. And you guys are fighting the good fight with that, you know?
Thank
You're
you.
fighting the good fight because I feel like, you know, there is so much potential in Lancaster too. Like this could be a cultural hub. And I know that's like a big statement, but I've seen it. I've seen like people perform, I've seen the shows, I've seen the musicians, and they are talented. You know, it's just that we haven't necessarily worked together that much, and we haven't necessarily discussed with each other. And I think that is the way forward. If we do that, I think there's a lot that can be done here in Lancaster for sure.
Definitely. I agree. I definitely see the potential of it being this talent hub and artistic hub. And, and it's happening. It was happening before COVID. It was becoming bigger. And I noticed people would come to venues from all over the country to see specific shows, which would only be shown in the Northwest and in Lancaster. And like, yeah, it's wonderful to see artists who aren't necessarily natives of Lancashire, but still see the potential and decided to stay and decided to invest in it.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm so glad that I did. You know, I feel like if it wasn't for Lancaster, I wouldn't have ventured into making music. You know, it's the people that I met here that have inspired me as well. You know, so yeah, I hope the same kind of thing happens for anyone who's thinking, I've always wanted to write, or I've always wanted to perform, or I've wanted to, you know, become an actor or an actress or anything, creative. Now's your chance because Lancaster is definitely the place to be, I feel.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you've kind of answered the question already, but I was going to say, what advice do you have then to other emerging creatives?
I'd say the biggest thing that I've learned is put yourself out there. Just do it. If you've got an idea, just do it. It's super cliched, right? And it's so oversaid, but it's so true. I think if I hadn't released the music, then I wouldn't have been sat here talking to you. I wouldn't have had my song played on the radio. I wouldn't have had all these experiences and had the chance to speak to so many creatives. Like I said, before I put it out, I was like, oh, maybe this isn't good enough. And maybe, I can't share this with people because it's not that professional. And again, ignore those thoughts. If you want to do something, just do it because it's so rewarding and you'll be glad that you did it in the end. So that would be my advice.
So I think that's really solid advice. I think that's really cool. That brings us to the end of our lovely chat with you. So if people do want to reach out to you and find you and see what you're up to, what are your socials?
So on Instagram, I'm at carla.boti, and it's the same on Twitter. And on Facebook, you can find me as Carla Boti as well.
It's been really, really lovely chatting to you, and
It
it's lovely to
has
see you
been.
again as well.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed this conversation. It's gone so quick.
I know, I know. Thank you for people who've decided to watch and to join us. If you are a creative or an emerging artist in the northwest of England and would like to be featured with Three Left Feet, please reach out to us via social media or by our email, which is featured@threeleftfeet, and that is spelt FEETURED at threeleftfeet.co.uk. Carla's socials will be provided with the blog, which will be released very shortly. So thank you very much for joining, and thank you, Carla, as well. This has been really lovely chatting with you, and hope to see you next time. And can't wait to see what you come up with in the future. I'm so excited to see more music.
Perfect. Thank you so much.